Alright, so I wanted to continue my story, the adventures hanging out with Mineri, the rock band from Hongdae in Korea. And as you may remember from last time, I talked about my first time we met, and we stayed up all night and bounced around from restaurants to bars to cafes and watched the sunrise. Um, so the next weekend, I was like, man, I want to hang out with those guys again. You know, it was such a great time. And luckily, I called them up, and they're like, "Yeah, we're playing a show," which I would later find out would kind of be like a regular weekend thing, where every weekend they would play shows, and I kind of just go see them. But the second time hanging out with them was pretty awesome, as good as the first. We went to a kind of bar or venue in Korea. They're called like LP bars, and maybe I just haven't been to many places in the U.S., but I've never really seen a place exactly like this. And I'd say every city or even every town, like smaller areas, they all have one of these bars, at least one. You kind of have to find them. They're off the beaten path. They're not usually by the subway area. And it's just a bar with a bunch of really old LPs and vinyl. It's usually a lot of classic rock type stuff, but they'll have everything. I mean, there's thousands of records in these places, and they have really old record players. Just, I've been to one in Bundang where I lived. It was near Sune Station, about like an hour walk from the station. And this guy just had like old Apple computer parts in there, like from the 80s, just a bunch of old gadgets. They're kind of just like places that relish the old and vintage. So anyway, we went to one of these kind of places in Hongdae, and it was only really us there. And I remember I was really excited because I'm a really big Prince fan. So I was requesting a bunch of old Prince records, and they had them all. Pretty much anything you can really think of, they had. I was pretty surprised. Anyway, hanging out with the Mineri guys, they had like their instruments and stuff there, and our owner told them like if they just want to play music like right then and there, they can. Now, if you saw the last video, you may know they're more of a rock electric band, but they didn't have all the setup for that there, so the guy just gave them like some acoustic guitars. And they just started kind of playing songs and freestyling and just messing around, and slowly like people started to come in, and it was like this impromptu concert. I mean, there's maybe only like 15 people besides like the band and our friends and stuff there. But I got to meet this one character who kind of ran with those guys, and I was like, "Oh, what's his name?" He's a pretty funny, cool guy. And they're like, "Oh, his name is Sexy John Baby." And I was like, "What? I didn't catch that." And they were saying Sexy Jean, like French, and then Baby. So this guy's name was Sexy John Baby. And I ended up knowing him for about a year, and that was the only thing I ever knew him as. And he was really bad at guitar, horrible. I mean, he was an alright singer. I think all Koreans are pretty good singers. And he was up there playing. He's singing like Simon and Garfunkel. That's all he knew. And he was just like really bad. Everyone was cheering him on and having a good time. And that was kind of like just the highlight of the night, is like just seeing this really bad guy up there playing, and like new people would be walking into this place and not know what was going on, and just watching their faces. But everyone, after a couple of minutes, realized, I don't know what he was saying in Korean, but he was winning people over when he would talk. I think he's a pretty funny guy. So that night kind of came to a close, and I lived about an hour and a half by subway back home. So if I wanted to get back home on time, I had to leave at like 10:45 to catch the last subway, because you have to make connections later down the line. And I would say like the last connection left at like 11:30. So anyway, and just around that time, 10:45, 11 is when the night's starting to pick up, and you're having a good time, and it's really a bit of like a buzzkill, I guess, to leave then. So one of the guys is like, "Hey, you can stay at Sexy John Baby's house. He lives near here." He goes to a university called Yonsei University, which I later found out was like one of the top like Ivy League schools of Korea, called Sky University, is what they call the Ivy Leagues. So he didn't really strike me as a really intelligent guy, but he's like a philosopher and all this stuff I later found out. But they're like, "Yeah, you can stay at his house. He's got like extra space, and he lives right around here." And I was like, "I don't know. Like, I just met this guy tonight. Like, are you sure? Like, it's alright?" And he came over. "Oh yeah, come on, stay. It'll be fun. We'll have a party." So I don't really remember what we did, but we stayed out, probably had a good time. I just remember when it was time to go back to his place, and I was like, "Oh man, this could be kind of awkward," But he made it not that awkward. Took a taxi to his place. We went in there, and I remember it was down. You walk down, it was the basement 1 level. And I just remember he had so many pictures of like jazz and like old hip hop musicians. To be honest, everybody on his wall was African American. It was just colored. And in Korea and also Japan, they call this kind of music black music. If you ask what's your favorite kind of music, I said, hey, sexy John baby, what's your favorite kind of music? You know, you like jazz or whatever? He's like, oh, I like black music. Kind of maybe racist in the U.S. I don't know. It was the first time I ever heard that phrase talking about a genre of music. But I later heard it a lot. And he just, all these old legends and stuff. And I never would have guessed he was into that from what I knew. He kind of seemed like a class clown kind of guy. But, so I remember he offered me a drink of like this barley tea, which is pretty big in Korea. And we went to bed. Now, the funny thing is, I slept in his bed, and then he slept like on that couch, and it was really, really hot. There's no air conditioning, so you're sleeping just shirtless and like in your underwear. And in the morning, I remember sexy John baby's phone kept going off, like, ringing, and he was like not picking it up. I woke up, 6, 7 a.m. And I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be strange. Very awkward. I'm an awkward person, I guess, so I just always very sensitive to things being awkward. And then there's knocking on the door after all these phone calls. I'm just like, what? Does someone really needs to get a hold of this guy? I don't know. Should I wake him up? What did I do? I just decided I'm just gonna pull the covers over my head and just kind of ignore the situation. Well, I just had my head down, getting the blankets like this, and it kind of covers up to here. I get a knock on the door, and then finally the door just opens up. And this girl, Korean girl, comes over to me and is rubbing my back and stuff in bed. And I just turn over. I'm like, oh, John is over there. And her look on her face was just shocked. And I guess what happened was she thought I was him just because my head was down and stuff. And for a Korean guy, we have similar body type. He was a taller Korean guy, but I don't know, my hair, I don't know how she thought that. I guess it was early and dark in there. It was just weird and awkward, but we all had a good laugh, and it ended up not being as strange as I thought. We went out to breakfast, and we ate a dish called mulnaemyeon and bibimbap, which are cold noodle dishes. Bibimbap is spicy, it's red, and mulnaemyeon is a vinegary cold noodle. And I'd been in Korea at this point for just over a month, and I remember I was so hungry, but I couldn't get the noodles out the chopsticks. It was too hard for me, and I was starving, and it was just very embarrassing. And they were trying to help me. They were so nice, and again, always, sexy John paid for my taxi back to his place, let me stay at his place, and then they bought me breakfast. They wouldn't let me pay for any of that, and this was the first night I ever met these people. So that's it for the story of hanging out with the Mineri guys. I think I have about one more story worthwhile telling. But yeah, stuff like that only has ever happened to me in Korea. I don't know if it's ever happened to you anywhere else. I guess let us know below. So check out our blog at twocrewmondudes.blogspot.com. It's all redone. We redesigned it. Thanks to Matt. It's looking pretty good. And listen to our podcast. If you like this video, we do a podcast. You can find it on iTunes or on our blog. Just type in 2 Crude Mondudes. So that's it, everyone. Until next time.